Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice big 12 Major League Baseball slate, 12 game Major League Baseball slate, that is. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. I really do appreciate it. So let's go ahead and check out the weather first here. Let me pull that up. This slate does look like it's going to have a few weather issues, so we want to make sure that we know what we're looking at. So the San Francisco-Baltimore game has some weather concerns, as does the Washington Nationals-New York Mets game. Both those games do have some risk. Looks like they will both be known pretty early, so I think that's probably the case. But we'll see. Hopefully that doesn't impact this slate too much. Let's go ahead and look at our pitchers here. So we have 5 pitchers that we're targeting today. One being Sonny Gray for St. Louis. Now he is a top tier play for me. He had a phenomenal game against Pittsburgh the last time he played them, and he's been really good lately. I think he's got a lot of upside in this matchup and one of the better strikeout rates on the slate. Aaron Nola also looks really solid today against Milwaukee. He's also pitched well against them in the past. He's been a little bit less consistent recently, so to keep that in mind, but he's definitely a capable option today. Tyreek Skubal for Detroit is also interesting on the slate. He's a very expensive guy, but he also has a lot of really good strikeout potential today against Kansas City, though I do think there's a couple bats on Kansas City that can do well. Tanner Bibby is also in play for Cleveland against Minnesota. Obviously, Minnesota has a couple guys that are capable, but he is one of the better options on the slate, and so he's definitely worth a look there. Spencer Swellenbach also looks good for for Atlanta, though you got to remember this game's in Cincinnati, so that definitely gives it a little bit more risk. And his floor is probably a little bit lower than some of the other guys already mentioned, but he's one of the cheaper options that are good. So that's what I look at pitching today. Looking at our catchers, Sean Murphy is a top uh, my my favorite play, assuming he draws a start for Atlanta. Um, he has improved his hitting in the last few week or so, and he's got a favorable matchup here against Cincinnati, and he's got home run upside today. He's also nice and cheap at $3,600. Will Smith also in play for this position for the Dodgers, so he is fairly expensive at $4,600. I typically don't want to pay that much for him, but he is capable of a home run, and so he's definitely worth a look here as well. Also, Salvador Perez is kind of a contrarian play at this position. He's not much play, but he does have some upside in a high risk, high reward situation. The ownership will be with Will Smith and Sean Murphy, so being a little bit chalky at this position is probably smart, especially with Sean Murphy being cheap. Now, if Travis d'Arnaud ends up starting, then he would definitely be in play as well. Looking at Matt Olson for Atlanta at first base is the top of our play here. He's got some very good metrics today, and he looks like he's in a great spot here, so he's definitely worth a look. Otani has been phenomenal. He just had his 48th home run and 48th stolen base uh, recently, so he's definitely on pace for getting 50-50, and so he's probably going to be trying to get those in the next couple of games. I look for him to hit home run today as well, though the metrics are not particularly perfect on the slate. Looking at Vlad Jr., he's very interesting today as he's hitting the ball very well lately, and he has some really good home run upside today, so definitely worth a look there as well. Josh Naylor also looks solid here for Cleveland. This position's pretty deep, but I don't think you have to go chalky at all. I think you can kind of mix and match different guys to be different. Same with Lamont Wade Jr. He's also a dirt cheap option, though, that you can kind of play in as kind of a Hail Mary play. Not a whole lot of home run upside, but just good hitting metrics on the slate. The ownership here are Otani, Paul Goldschmidt, and Freddie Freeman. I definitely think that going with some randomness here at this position is probably the way to go since there's so many guys that look decent. Looking at second base, Brendan Donovan is the top overall play here. He's also cheap at $3,000. He's going to be very popular on the slate, I think, because he can also play second base or outfield. But if you want to use somebody else at this position, then somebody you definitely have to consider would be Whit Merrifield for Atlanta, as he draws fantastic metrics for this game. He's got good hitting upside today, and he's been hitting the ball better, at least at times recently, so he's definitely capable here. The ownership, though, will be Brendan Donovan and Zach McKinstry. I don't think Zach McKinstry is somebody I'm going to prioritize very much, but he definitely should fit into a couple lineups here and there. Looking at third base, we do like Jose Ramirez and Jazz Chisholm Jr. and Rafael Devers. All three of these guys are super expensive. They all have home run upside today, and you can kind of mix and match any of these dudes to fit there. But if you can't afford them, then there's 2 guys you could look at. One being Nolan Arenado, who's probably going to be one of the higher owned plays on the slate, and he's nice and cheap here with some decent potential. And then Max Muncy. for the Dodgers, who's just a nice value play. If he draws a start, he's been phenomenal against Miami this season and has a lot of upside as he's had some big games lately. Looking at shortstop, another position that's fairly expensive on the surface with Gunnar Henderson and Ella De La Cruz. Also, Bobby Witt Jr. does look interesting as well. But to get a little cheap here, we can look at Mason Wen for St. Louis. Now, he's not a must play, but he should have some decent ownership, but he's definitely capable of a good game here. So he's definitely worth a look there. And then Miguel Rojas for the Dodgers is kind of a Hail Mary play at this position, kind of a bear bust option, but he's been extremely good lately, so he's definitely worth a look as well. If we look at the outfielders, the top ownership here first will be Otani, Brendan Donovan, Zach McKinstry, Michael Harris, Mookie Betts, Toscar Hernandez, and Matt Vierling. So my top overall plays: Otani, Mookie Betts, Riley Green, Toscar Hernandez. Now, I do think all these guys are a little bit pricey today, but you definitely have to look at Riley Green and Toscar Hernandez as mid-value plays. Some good value plays, though. Michael Harris, who is a core play for me, is a fantastic option today. Alec Burleson, Kerry Carpenter, and Julio Rodriguez all have lots of upside on the slate. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing.